Winnie. Look. Sisters, prepare thyselves. 'Tis her life force. The potion works. Take my hands. We will share her.
Oh, Winnie, how generous of thee.
Hey everyone, it's Amanda Leute, and today we're going to paint my favorite Hocus Pocus painting. So this one has been extremely popular when I taught in-person classes, and every single one of them turned out really, really good. I want to let you know you don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. You can switch it up at any time. For example, when I taught this before, we had someone do Mary, one of the witches, riding on a vacuum sweeper. Someone put Binks the cat in theirs. I think I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that in this one because it was super adorable. And then someone put the book that Winnie carries around with her. It was really, really cool to see all the different things people did in their painting. You can switch up colors. You can do anything you'd wish. I'm going to show you exactly how I do it step by step. And before we get started, I'm going to go over supplies. So if you don't have exact colors, do not worry because I am going to use some metallics in this painting. I know a lot of you don't have them, but I highly recommend it for some paintings just to give it a little extra something. It really makes it shiny and it's a cool look to it. So it's optional. You don't have to do it, but I will go over everything that I have. So, oh, I forgot one color. So I'm gonna double check my paints here before I tell you to grab them. Okay, we're all set now. So colors that you're gonna need: black, yellow. Now this color here, you can mix it yourself with red and a dab of blue. This is just like a violet magenta color, but this one is DecoArt Americana Premium, and it's called Quinacridone Violet. I cannot pronounce that, guys, but I'll just show it to you. And I'll write it down in the link description. And then we have green, red, blue. If you want to do teal, you can do teal. That's optional too. And then white, black. Now, I have these metallics. This is the one I was telling you that's shiny. Depending how the light hits it, see how it reflects off of it and it's nice and shiny. We have crystal green and berry. So this is what we're going to use to put on the witches. Now there is a metallic red. I didn't have any left, but if you want to scoop that up for Mary's dress, you can do that too, or you can just mix this in with a little bit of red paint. So as far as brushes go, I have 5 brushes here. Now, here's why. If you just want to use the same 4 we always do, that's okay. I have my flat brush. I have my angled flat brush with the pointed tip. I have a round brush. Now, this is a larger round brush. I also like to grab a smaller one, just in case I need something for little tiny details. And then you're gonna need a liner brush or a detail brush, and that's the little tiny skinny ones. Now I have kind of a bigger one here, but they do have ones that are a bit smaller, like this one. This one's a liner brush or a detail brush. They kind of look like that. They're a little bit shorter. It does not matter which one you decide to use. So I have 5 brushes here. I usually always have like a giant art bucket here with pencils, different kinds of brushes. That's up to you if you want to do that, but if you just use 4 of those, you are set to do anything. And then last but not least, you're going to need a pencil. The first thing I'm going to do before I get started is I'm going to sketch the wall of the cemetery. So Old Burial Hill is what it's going to be called, the cemetery. And it's actually a real cemetery in Salem, Massachusetts. So if you guys want to hear the background story on it, I'll be sure to talk about it like in the group. But it's a really cool story. The Sanderson sisters actually were real sisters back in the day, and their story's pretty interesting. But this is a real cemetery. We're gonna start by sketching it and sketching the sisters, and then we'll start painting. So let's go ahead and grab your pencil, and let me make sure you guys can see my sketch. So I'm gonna zoom in just a tad, okay? So the cemetery wall is gonna be right in the middle. Oh, and don't forget you're gonna need paper plates, lots of napkins, and a bucket of water. And if I sound a little muffly today, I apologize, you guys. I've been sick for like 2 weeks with a horrible cold. I'm just kind of recovering, so bear with me. I have a scratchy throat. But here we go. So Burial Hill wall is right in the middle. You're gonna leave enough space for the sisters. There's 3 of them. And I wouldn't get too picky about their details, because in the movie, during this scene, they're wearing these long cloaks. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of guess how much space I'm gonna need. And you don't want to come up too high in the sky, because you want to leave some room for some clouds in your background, a moon, trees. But here's my gap. So I just do 2 lines parallel to each other, and I leave enough room to put the sisters. Now, if you are more comfortable, we can sketch the sisters. All it is put like 3 triangles like this. This is their hoods, okay, within the space, and then it's gonna come out really long. Their cloaks, and they're just wavy, and they can stop like next to each other, but we have the 3 sisters. So the wall, this is gonna be like the gate, okay? And then from there, what we're gonna do is the top part of the gate post, it's just kind of rounded. If it is not perfectly symmetrical, that is okay, because it's just the stone gate. I mean, they're old and it's a creepy painting. I wouldn't get too picky. But then you're gonna come down and do the first post like this, and come down, do the first post like that, okay? Make sure you guys can see, okay? You guys see that? Let me zoom in. So pause me if you need to pause. So again, you're gonna do these little triangles for the hood, and then it just comes down really long and flowy for the cloaks, okay? Then you'll do the line, or you can do that before you do the sisters, so you kind of know where to squeeze them in. And then you'll do these big long bars, okay? Now this next part, like with the post, what it's gonna look like is it has a big you can sketch it in now or later, because you're just gonna paint over it, but just so you guys can see where it's gonna be, it kind of just like goes from one end to the other like this, and it's gonna say Old Burial Hill. So by looking at that, I may have made the post a little too big. It's gonna take up a lot of space. So what you can do is, one, maybe you can make your witches a little bit taller by just elongating their hood, or you can erase this and you can make it come down. It's just a little easier just to make your witches a little taller, but get it exactly how you want before we move on. The next part that we're gonna do is the gate wall, and all that's gonna be is over to the side like that, come over here, over to the side like that, and then at the bottom of your pole, you're gonna go like that, kind of curve it a little bit, just looks a little better. like it's sucking you into the painting. So I just slightly kind of curve that angle. And that's the end of our drawing. That's all. I mean, we can go and make adjustments later, but you just want to make sure everything's proportioned right before you start painting. So again, I kind of made the sisters a little bit taller. If you want to erase this in the middle where we made any mistakes, you can do that now, or just paint over it later. But there we go. All the other little details, like the trees and stuff, I paint them. I don't draw them on. This is the main part that you want to have done. So go ahead and pause me. I'm going to zoom out a hair. You guys see that all okay? I wouldn't worry about this banner because we're going to cover right over it. But everything else, you're going to want to do those 2 posts, the 3 sisters, and then the wall. So let's dive in, you guys. I'm going to go just my light setting here just to make sure my paint colors are nice and bright. Oops. And there we go. We are ready. So first brush you're going to need to use is your big giant flat brush. Now sometimes in the little spaces like between the sisters and stuff, you might want to switch to a different brush. So keep that in mind when we're painting. Now these are acrylics, they dry very fast. And oh, my light keeps flicking off, you guys. My cat's tugging at it. Okay. Hopefully he stops. I'm painting from home and my cat keeps unplugging the cord. So we are going to use this big brush and the paint's dry quick, so that's where your bucket of water is going to come in handy. You're just going to kind of dunk into the bucket after every couple strokes and tap off the extra water. So we are going to mix our first color. And there goes my cat again. 1 second. Okay, we're all under control. So we're going to do like a purplish blue and then go into like a lime green. So I have extra plates here I'm gonna use, and we're gonna mix our first color. So this is gonna be that violet color I was telling you about from DecoArt. It's super gorgeous. Now if you wanna darken it up a little bit, you could do a little bit of blue and some violet mixed together. That's really pretty. And if you want a little lighter, add a little bit of white. I added a little too much white, so I'm going to do a little more blue and a little more of the violet. And we got a gorgeous purple. Now, if you don't have this, you can just use regular purple, and then you can do red with a tiny bit of purple or a tiny bit of blue to get this color right here. So that being said, what I'm gonna start off with is I'm gonna do my darkest color up at the top, and then I'm gonna work my way down and get lighter and lighter and lighter until it gets to that lime green. Now remember when I said this is gonna probably get covered up? We're gonna cover that just because it's so much easier. Now, as you're painting, you can paint your sides, like your edges as you go, or you could wait until you're done doing the whole painting and paint your sides, like a black border. So you're gonna wanna think about what you wanna do now. I kind of find it easier just to paint my sides as I go, because then I don't have to worry about forgetting, and then it kind of looks like a gallery wrap. So I'm just gonna hurry up and get that while I have this color. And now I'm going to start transition into my violet. So you are just going to take a scoop of it with your dirty brush, and you're going to slap it right on top before it dries. If it dries, it's not going to blend, so keep that in mind. So this, now you kind of look like you have some really pretty cloud formations in there, looks a little spooky. So I'm just putting this right on top and going back and forth very lightly. And then they all just fade into each other. Now I'm gonna do my sides with this color. Now this is where it gets tricky, as we're getting up to those poles that we just painted. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take a little bit more color here, and we're just gonna kind of go around the poles, and don't go too far down because I'm gonna put green in. I would stop at this part around the post on the top. So we outlined it, and then we'll go fill that in. Can push very lightly, and we're gonna rinse our brush all the way out when we're done. We're gonna start to fade into green. Now I'm using an 11 by 14 canvas, you guys. So if I'm kind of ahead of you, if you're doing like a bigger size, like 16 by 20 or 18 by 24, don't feel hurried. Just put me on pause at any time, and then you can get caught up when it's your time to paint it. So just make sure before everything is dry, you flatten everything out up top. Sometimes you get little creases that show the background canvas. All you do is just take your brush with a loose wrist, don't push very hard, from one end to the other, and that will get rid of any little creases. Those creases are just you lifting up mid-stroke. Okay, so I think we're good. I'm gonna rinse my brush all the way, and those dark colors, just pull them off on your napkin. Now for lime green, we're gonna do, I just have regular green, and I'll mix some yellow into it. If you need to make your own green, you could mix yellow and blue, equal amounts. And if you need to put a little white to brighten it up, you can do that. So what I'm gonna do first is I'm gonna work fast. I'm gonna go below the color before I go on top of it, because I don't wanna pull all of that purple down. So I'm just gonna try my best. I'm gonna go in between my witches here, the creases. And if you accidentally get some over top of your witches, I wouldn't worry so much, because you can paint right over top of any color. Same thing with your pole. And you can change these colors. They don't have to be this lime green and purple. Like I said, like if you decide to make it your own, do something different, super cool, you guys. And be sure to share your paintings. So I'm just about done. I'm trying to work fast because what I'm gonna do next is overlap this green on top of the purple. So both colors have to be wet to transition. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab some green and hurry up before this dries, and just right in between, I'm gonna very lightly press back and forth, and see how it kind of fades away the line. Now my purple's drying, so I'm gonna go back to my magenta and put it back in. Now it does turn it this weird brown color, and this is the part everybody struggles with. This is the hardest part. So what I'm gonna tell you is just get the basic color, don't pull it down. You don't wanna mucky up what you just did down here, but fade it. If you need to go back and forth between the two colors, do that. And then before you do it even more, see how messy that looks? Take your brush, rinse it out, pull off the color, and then with a clean brush, very lightly, fade that. And look how smooth that looks. Just make sure you tap off a lot of the water because it will pull the color underneath if there's too much water. So just very, very smoothly with a clean brush, go ahead and fade this in. Now, if you put too much of this yucky color, you can go back and put in some more lime green and put it back in. But that is super important. Yeah, see, I'm losing my lime green. I'm gonna rinse my brush all the way, get all the yucky color out, and put a little more lime green in. A lot of this part is trial and error. This is probably the hardest part of the whole painting. So sometimes you're just gonna go back in, fix it, redo it a little bit so it looks clean, not messy. But you just want to eliminate any striping, basically. Like, you want it to all flow and be smooth. Now, if you need to switch to a smaller brush, if you're having a hard time in these little creases, go ahead. But I'm just gonna make sure everything's nice and smooth. Yeah, I like that transition. This one over here, do a little more lime green. In there, I'm getting pretty happy with it. Maybe a little more. Just keep playing with it, you guys, because you can't go back and fix it when you go to do the other parts of the painting. So you want to make sure you like it now. If you need to, you can wait for this to dry a little bit. If you need to add more lime green and it's not sticking, you can do that. But just make sure that transition is there. Beautiful. It's not so much of a harsh line. I can still kind of see one on this side, trying to fix it, but I just don't want that really harsh stripe look from one color to the next. So pretty happy with how this is fading. I think I'm gonna leave it. Sometimes you can overdo it, and I don't want to do that. So, pretty happy with this. Now, before we move on, again, make sure you like it. If you want to go up and say maybe it's too dark up top, you want to go and add a little bit more of the violet or a brighter color, just go back in. You could streak some in like they're clouds, which would be pretty. If you have any canvas showing back there, you can fix it, but just remember with this part, it's gonna be a little tough to blend everything because, you know, once it's dry, it's hard to work with. So really, like, kind of make sure when you're doing this, like, you're comfortable blending it. If not, I would just leave it alone. I just had a couple spots I wanted to add a little more bright color to, but as you can see, it's getting tougher for me to blend, so should have just left it alone, but there. Another thing are the sides are very stubborn. Like, a lot of times I see little cracks, so I would wait for the whole thing to dry and then go back, and if you have any sides that have canvas showing, then cover it up when it's dry. So the top part is always probably the hardest with this painting. The rest is pretty easy going, as it's mostly like blacks and grays and then your sisters. Now, I really like my sky now. I added a few of those lighter clouds. I think I'm done with it. I'm not gonna mess with it. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm just gonna rinse my brush, put it aside, and we're gonna grab the angle flat brush. So go ahead and put me on pause if you're not ready yet. But for this next part, this is really easy to get caught up on, so I'm gonna get started. What you're gonna do is you're going to now fill in your post that you had already sketched out with just black paint. So try your hardest to stay within your lines, so this way nothing gets lopsided. But you're gonna go and put the posts in with just black. This is the first coat. Next coat, when it dries, we'll go ahead and put like the fancy poles. There we go. Like, well, not the poles, but like the rocks, and then the wire for the gate. All those details are gonna really make it. Now on your sides, if you guys, which I do this all the time, that's why majority of my paintings, I paint them black, but if you forgot to do your edges, you can go ahead and wrap the black around and then go back and put green or any other color you might have forgot. And just kind of match up the gate and the wall here. And then we'll do the other side. And I really just love how the black makes your background like really bright. It really like is a good contrast. Really stands out. And if it's bumpy, if it's not perfectly straight, it's just gonna look like some cobblestone or whatever stones that they put in the wall are sticking out a little bit. So don't worry if it's not perfect. So this part goes by pretty fast. So if I get too ahead, go ahead and put me on pause. And I'm just gonna wrap my edge around here. There we go. Now there's one more thing we're gonna do, which is gonna fill a lot of space in. But it's not pure black. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the same brush with black, and I'm gonna now put the road in, but it's gray. You want it to stand apart from your wall. So go ahead, make sure you kind of know where your ends of your cloak is, and you can go put this gray in. Now it matches pretty closely to the wall. I almost think I made this side a little too light, so I'm gonna put more black in. It's a dark gray, just so it's really dark but noticeably different, so it doesn't look like it's a part of the wall is what you're after. And it does not have to be one solid color. Like as I'm going and doing my road, you can see different shades of gray in it, so I wouldn't be too worried. So I'm gonna put a little more black in. Make sure you get up close to your wall. And then if you want to change your brush to your bigger brush, that's fine. It'll kind of speed it up, especially if you're using a bigger canvas. And then you're going to paint your sides with this and paint your bottom with this color, the gray. And then we'll have pretty much our first layer all completely done, minus the witches. I do them last. So see how it's not one solid shade of gray? I just put in some darker black. I put in some lighter gray. It kind of gives it a little more realism to it because it's not one solid color. Now, if you made it too light and it's not darkening up for you, maybe wait for it to dry a little bit. And then you can make your adjustments. There. So I'm just gonna get my edges real quick. And there we go. Over here. Perfect. All right, you guys, so we have our first coat. So I'm gonna let this dry completely. If you wanna use a blow dryer or just wanna take a break and then come back, it does not take long for acrylics to dry, depending on how many coats you put on. Mine's pretty wet. I layered the paint on good, so I give it about 5 minutes, it should be dry. But if you wanna speed up the process, you could get a hair dryer, hold it away from the painting. Doesn't need to be cool or hot. I kind of find that either one's okay. Some people say only do it on the cool setting. Hasn't really made a difference for me. But you can just kind of come back later when it's dry. I'm gonna go ahead and put myself on pause and then we'll be ready to go when this is dry. All right, you guys, so we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next part. And this part is gonna be doing the wall and then the little details like the writing. We're gonna make that banner that says Old Burial Hill. Sometimes people don't even write Old Burial Hill though. I've seen anywhere from Happy Halloween to just literally like anything, like the year. There's so many things. I'm trying to think of specific ones people have done, but every one of them was different. Someone put Hocus Pocus in the middle. I'll show you guys a couple of the paintings for you guys to see. But we're gonna do the details in the wall. Now this part, it's pretty easy. All we're gonna do is use a round brush. Now I do have 2 round brushes here. One's bigger. I could use this because it has a nice pointed tip to it, but I think I'm gonna use the smaller round brush. Or you can use a little detail brush. But we're gonna do the stones. Now, when you do the stones, they're gonna be like a gray color. Now the trick is, just like the road, you don't want them a light gray where it really, really stands out. It just won't look very real. Especially because when we put our moon up here, like this is gonna be like a shadow. Like it's not gonna be very, very bright as your light source is coming from that way, facing this way. So make it a color that's noticeable, but still kind of blends into the black. Now, another cool thing you could do, so you wanna add a little bit of color to it, like green to make it a little spooky, or a little yellow, or a little purple. Does not have to be just plain gray. You can add a little bit of color, just make sure you keep it pretty dark. So if you want to mix a little blue into it, a little purple into your gray, this is a great color right here. It's pretty dark. So all you're gonna do is just do like little stones, and they're all different sizes, and you just try to fit them like puzzle piece where they're separated, but there's some small ones, there's some big ones. Let me make sure you guys can see that. Let me zoom on in here now, because it's so similar. Let me do some lighter ones just so you guys can see. So I'm making a weird stone shape, and then maybe a little one, and then get up close to the wall, Maybe do a big one. See how they're very similar to the wall, but when you look really closely, you're going to be able to see the stones. And that's all there is to it. It's hard to see, especially since it's so close. Maybe if I lay it like here, you guys will be able to see okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a couple. And if you have some that are lighter and some that are darker, that's okay. Just make sure it's not really, really light colored. And I just wing it. I just kind of plop on the paint and kind of round out the edges a little bit. You don't want all the rocks to be the same. It won't look real. Now I'm just going to do a couple. And then you can go ahead and pause me. So I try to do some little tiny rocks like in between. Like once I get like the big ones, you know, sometimes like you'll see little tiny stones in the little cracks. You can put a couple tiny stones. And you also want to make sure you get a couple that go alongside the wall. It'll look more real, like it wraps around the edge. So I'm just about done with this wall. As you see, it does not take much time. I don't give it much thought. If you're doing a gallery wrap, you can do some stones, like lift this up and get the edge. I highly recommend that. It just looks better when it's hung up on the wall, looks completed. These are just little details that you might not think about until it's hung up on the wall, and then you're like, oh darn, I should have done that. It happens to me all the time. So I have my wall done on that right side. So I'm gonna now go to the other side, and then as soon as you're done, we'll go ahead and do the next part. All right, I have my stones done right now, and I'm gonna go on to doing the next part. So we have two things we're gonna do still with the black paint. But first, what I'm gonna do is to show you what to expect. We're gonna do the banner looking thing, like that goes on top, and then we'll go ahead and do the bars. So that will be first, and then the next thing we're gonna do is we'll do the moon, and then we're gonna skip back to using black, and we'll go ahead and start to do the trees on top of the moon. So first things first is you're gonna use your little tiny detail or liner brush. Some people, if you happen to have one, they sell them like fairly reasonably cheap. I believe they're less than $5 if you have a coupon. At Hobby Lobby, they have paint markers. They have all colors, but black works fine if you're not comfortable with writing with one of these brushes. So that's just an idea, and you can do that with the bars too. But you're just gonna use a liner brush or a detail brush. So really make sure you know after a couple times that you paint with this, you re-wet and replenish your paint. Now sometimes these brushes like to stick together, so what I do is I twist and I pull, and you'll get a perfect point. So if that's happening to you and they're sticking together, that usually does the trick. So another thing you could do if you would feel more comfortable is use a piece of chalk and sketch it out first and then paint over the chalk. So what I'm going to do is right in the middle of the pole, I'm going to do a line like that. Make sure you guys can see okay. I'll zoom in. So right up top, I'm going to do a line, and then I'm going to, again, re-wet the brush, replenish the paint, twist in the paint, and you get a perfect point. Now be careful when you rest your hand, especially if this is still wet, because you don't want to smudge your painting. But this is where everybody always gets scared about, is you got to do a big, like, arch from one side to the other. Sometimes it's easier just to do it and be done with it. So that's why you definitely want to make sure, like, your brush is nice and ready to go. And here we go. We're going to do an arch from one side to the other. Now look how crooked that is, but that's okay. It's going to make it look really cool and spooky. And we're going to do it one more time, except this time from the bottom of the line connecting to the other. Like that. Perfect. And then if you have to go back and kind of thicken things up, there. And then I'll do that to the top. There. That's as good as it's gonna get. That part is always the trickiest, but it's okay if it's not perfect. It's a spooky painting. Now this is where with your brush, you can write whatever you want inside. I always put the old burial hill because that's what it says in real life. But if you want to change it up to customize it, you definitely can. And just make sure, you fit everything in there. If you need to spell it out first or kind of do it with chalk, that's fine. Oh, getting close to running out of room. We could do it. And just made it. Okay. So later on when this dries, I will give it like a little touch of white, like a highlight, just to kind of make it stand out a little bit better. And there we have it, Old Barrel Hill. Now the next part we're gonna do is the moon. And then we'll go into doing like the trees and the gate, but I like to do the moon now. And this part, if you're uncomfortable making a perfect circle, just find something around your house that's round, that's the size that you want. So for me, it would be this cap on this. You can do pencil, or you could just use your brush. And that just kind of gives me that shape I need. Yep. And then I'm just doing white paint. And you'll fill that in. Now if you want to do it with like a hint of green to reflect the color, or a hint of purple, you absolutely can. I might do that later. I haven't made up my mind, so I'm just going to do white for now. And then if I want to add some color later, I can do that too. And just try your best to stay within your line you made for your circle. Make sure you're re-wetting your paint when you're using the little brush so it goes smooth. And I forgot to move you guys, sorry about that. If you guys didn't see, you just take something round, trace over it, and fill it in white. Now your moon might need 2 coats. We'll let this one dry first and then we'll see. But just fill it in as best as you can. There. And zoom out. So that's what it's gonna look like. Zoom out more. There we go. So we just have a few more things to do. After our moon, we're gonna go back to the black paint. So rinse all the white out. If you're using your little brushes, we're gonna need it. And I'm gonna, I think right there should be a good viewing spot for you guys. Just wanna make sure you can see everything I'm doing. So I'm gonna use my little brush. I'm gonna rinse the white out. And if I'm going too fast, just go ahead and pause me, finish your moon. In this next part, we're just gonna use our black paint. Now this part, we're gonna do the fence. And what it is it's another arch. So we're gonna kind of have it come up to about here, right where the top of our post is. And then the gate will kind of come right here where we have the start of our wall. So I'm just gonna go like that and then come down the other side. Okay. Now the next part, we're gonna go and do the posts on the wall. So what you're gonna do is come up about here and go over. It's kind of like halfway between your posts, but just make sure they kind of line up here, and then do the other side. Just gonna thicken that one up. There we go. And this one has 2. We'll do another one here. And you are going to want to wrap this around your edge. There we go. Now the middle part, I just have a circle in the middle of the gate, just kind of a little detail on the gate. And then you'll do a line straight down the middle, and it goes right to Winnie's head. And then from there, you're just gonna like wing it. On my original, I put like an odd number. I wasn't paying attention. But you could do like 3 bars going down this side, 3 on the other. Or if you want to make it exact, you can like absolutely like look up Old Burial Hill. But you're gonna do these little bars where the tips come up like off the gate. Like this. Like see how it pokes up? And then I push really soft, because see how I got a little thick there? I pushed a little too hard. That's okay if you accidentally do it, but just try your best. And then just kind of go in between the sisters. So it looks like they're in front of the gate and not behind it. You'll see if I can squeeze one more. There we go. And then we'll kind of do the same with these. You can do, say like 3 or 4, whatever you can fit. Just kind of make sure they're the same length. I made those a little shorter, so I'm going to come up a little bit. There we go. And space them out as best as you can. Perfect. Now, on the tips of these, let me go ahead and zoom in. There's just some extra little spooky detail, and it's just a circle with a little point on top. It kind of looks like a spade. Mine never turn out perfect. They always look a little crooked, but it adds more character, in my opinion. That's my excuse. If you want to get real picky with it, you can do any type of design you want. Another thing too is if you feel you went too high up, a nice correction is you can just put like a little circle underneath and see how it kind of looks like it shortened it. It's a little trick you can do if you made them too tall. And there we go. So we have our posts, we have our hill. Next thing we're gonna do, and this is optional if you want to do this, but I'm gonna do like a few trees in the background. Now you could do your tree with black if you really want it to stand out. However, I'm gonna kind of do black mixed with a little bit of my magenta, and I'm gonna go ahead and zoom out so you guys can see the painting as a whole. And go ahead and pause me if you are still working on your post. So I need a little bit more of this magenta, and all it is, again, it's just that color we used in the beginning, where it's, if you needed to mix it yourself, it's red with a little bit of blue or a little purple to get that violet color. Now I'm gonna mix a little black into mine. Now a lot of black is no good, so just add little bits of black. So it's dark, but not straight black. And what we're gonna do is maybe like in the background, have some spooky trees. Now right where we put our poles, just be careful, you know, if you accidentally go over it, you can put the black back on top. Now this is probably hard to see, and I'm sorry, I will zoom in. But see how it just so slightly is noticeable? You guys see that? Right here, my tree. See how the color is very dark and it's kind of matching the background? The biggest thing, you're gonna use your little brush, but the trunk is always the thickest part, and don't push too hard. You just make these little spooky trees by doing like branches off of them and stuff. Like for example, right here, can you guys see this? I'll come up, so there would be my trunk, and then I just come off there real lightly and make kind of like a letter Y. Pull a branch here, see how it looks like a letter Y? That's all I do. Just like that. Just make sure the branch is the thickest part, and as they go out, they get thinner. Okay, we'll leave that here for a second. And then we'll do it right here. Now you can do one tree, you can do two, however many you want to do. This is your painting. You can make it a tall tree, you can make it small. The little details really add to the painting, give it a little extra something. So I got one tree here. I'm gonna do maybe another tree on the opposite side. Go ahead and zoom out. If you want to even do a tree that overlaps the moon, that might be cool. I'm just gonna kind of stay beneath it though. And just make sure you're re-watering your brush. I'm stopping right at that gate so it looks like it's behind it. I had someone one time draw Billy, the little the zombie guy. They drew Billy and it was so cool. I really hope I saved that picture because I definitely want to show you guys. It was pretty cool. There's so many things you can do. I had people do Binks, the cat, like on the ground. You can have Binks in a tree. We had Binks up on the pole, or right here on the wall. There's so many things you could do with this. So I think I'm happy with my tree. I don't want to overdo it. So I think I'm gonna stop. All right, so we have our trees, you guys. So we are getting closer and closer. Now there's just one step. As I'm looking at my wall, I forgot to add on here. I'm gonna do that real fast. And go ahead and zoom out. You're gonna actually do those lines, but do them like right here. And honestly, this is just a little tiny detail you don't have to do. There's even like, you could do like an S like in here for Sanderson Sisters. There's so many different things like that you can do, but you can get as detailed with it as you want. I just forgot to put the little lines there. So we're almost there, guys. We're gonna do the Sanderson Sisters now, and then we are finished. So heads up, I don't have a dark green, so I'm gonna make my own, but you're gonna need red, like a purplish pink color, and then a emerald green. So to make emerald green, I just have regular green here. I'm gonna put that here and add a little bit of blue. And that will darken her up. Maybe even a little more yellow. We're just gonna play around with it. And a little more blue. There we go, a little more green. If you put a tiny, tiny dab of black in it, that should darken it up to the perfect color. So greens, blues, tiny, tiny dab of black, and we should be good to go. So I'm gonna start by filling in Winifred. Now she's the green emerald witch. Now remember, this is just her back, so we don't need to make the facial features. That's the main reason why I designed her this way. It's just so much easier where they're recognizable, but you don't have to do the extra. I did have people before put part of her hair sticking out, like her hair color, but that's optional. So just try your best to stay within your lines where you had her. Now some of their cloaks are going to be touching and overlapping. That's okay. There we go. And you can always make like adjustments to them if you want to make, for example, Winifred's dress kind of overlap Sarah's over here. You can make it a little longer and wider over here, so it looks like Sarah's kind of in front of Winifred a little bit. There. So this is just the base coat. There's going to be more we're going to add to this. So what I'm going to have you do is just wait for that to dry, and then we'll do the details. Let's go to the next one. It's just easier to work it in so the paint doesn't peel apart. So next we have Mary. She's the red one. She's over here to the left. So let's go ahead and fill her in. Now I had some of my pole kind of go into her. So what you're gonna do is, if you need to overlap your wall, or if you need to go over some black spots, take a little bit of white paint, go over it, and that will cover it up. So anywhere there's black you need covered, white will cover it. So heads up, because then I know it looks pink now, but we're just gonna go ahead with another coat and cover her up so it won't matter. Now this part's tricky. I'm just trying not to go over top of Winnie's green. There we go. And now I'm gonna rinse my brush and we'll go on to Sarah. Now Sarah, you could mix that violet color and just put a little bit of more blue into it so it's purple. You could do red, blue, and white mixed together to make her. She's like a purplish pink. So you can play around with your colors till you get the right shade you're after, and then you'll fill her in. Now she's a little too dark. I'm gonna add a little bit more red and white, a little more of a pink. There we go. And I'm just trying my best not to cover up Winnie. Oh no, I got some paint down there. I'll have to cover that up. Now Sarah, she has kind of like, well, they all do, but in my painting I have her cloak kind of flying out in the wind. So I'm gonna put that in here too. So it comes right off her hood and just kind of flies into the air like that. She's got her little cloak. And so that's optional. I mean, I think it looks good, but if you don't want to put it, you don't have to. So I'm gonna fix my little boo-boo here. I accidentally got a little bit of color down here and cover that up. And dipped my arm into the paint, to the red paint, so I'm just fixing that mistake. Okay, I think I got it. So we're gonna let this dry for a second. It shouldn't take too long. While you're waiting for it to dry, if you wanna go ahead and check on your moon, if it needs a second coat of paint, you can do that. For something spooky, just because it's very, very bright, I'm gonna add a hint of green to it just to see how that looks. And I actually really like that. So for my second coat, I'm adding a little bit of green there, and I'm happy with that. So we're gonna continue to use the round brush, and this is where it's gonna get fun. So let's go to Winnie. She should be pretty dry by now. We're just gonna add different shades of that color we did. So what I will do is take that color, maybe add a little more green to it, and you're just gonna put this on like a squiggly line. You make sure, I'm gonna zoom in. This is gonna make her dress look like a dress. With just the one solid color, it does not look very realistic. So I'm just taking some like light green and just kind of waving it into her outfit. Now, I accidentally got some on to that other dress, so I'm gonna cover that up. But see now how the outfit is just kind of coming to life? It doesn't look like one solid color. Another thing you can do is add a little bit more green and black together, and you can stroke in some shadow color. So a little bit of black and put some of that in here. Now, the more you go over something, you guys, it's gonna kind of turn it into the color beneath and it will look muddy. So just go over it a few times because you can overdo it. So sometimes you just gotta go back and forth a couple times. There. Good. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the kind of the same thing with Mary and stuff. Like I said, just kind of keep playing around with it. Even with the green, if you need to lighten something up, you can add like a little bit of white to your color. But you want to work with this while, you know, the paint is still pretty wet because it won't fade. So I just kind of go back and forth between darks and light greens till it looks kind of real. So I just kind of keep going back and forth between all the different colors till I get it exactly how I want. And I'm pretty happy with that. So with Mary, the red one, she should be dry by now. We're gonna get all that green out of the brush. And we're just gonna take some plain red. By now, if you had to cover up any mistakes, you should be able to cover up that white. But you can do a little tiny bit of black mixed into your red, just a smidge, and we can add some darker shadows to her. Hers turned out really good. Nope, except for that part. There we go. See how the black and the red, all those look really good together. And just make sure you cover up any canvas showing underneath. There. And fix her little hood. Perfect. And now, last we have Sarah. So with hers, you could do like purple, you could do that darker magenta we used in the sky, and you're just gonna flow it through. And see how it makes the cloak look a lot better. You can mix a little black into the color you used for her. Just something that's noticeably darker than what you put on her. And there. Now Winnie, I wish I would have put a little bit more of a darker green. So bear with me, I'm just gonna go back and a little more. Boom, there, she's better. I like that. Now the last step, and this is where you're gonna customize it. Take your time. The last step is gonna be to add the witch's brooms. And then if you wanna do a little cat, I can show you how to do cat. But the witch's broom, all it is you're gonna, if you have brown, you can use brown. If you don't have brown, you can make brown by mixing opposite colors together. So for example, like primary colors are red, blue, and yellow. If you do, let's say green and red, opposite colors here. It's kind of turning it a little bit of a funky color. That's good. Add a little white to it and maybe a little yellow. So if you kind of make like a bunch of colors mixed together, it's gonna turn like a yucky brown. You could use that. You could even do like a yellow mixed with black gonna look a little on the greener side. If you mix a little red into it, see how it changes it. Let's kind of play around with it. The best bet would be to just use plain brown. I forgot to add brown, so I'm just kind of making my own. It's just a bunch of muddied colors like yellow and red and black should do the trick. That's where I'm getting this perfect color. So I would do yellow, red, and black and mix them together. And see how I get this gold color? If you don't want to putz around with that part, to just use brown. I'll make sure I put that in the description. But you're just gonna do like a stick. Like that. Or it looks like they're holding it in front of them. Just push really lightly. Now, depending how your dresses are, in my last painting I had a little bit more room to put like the bottom of the brim by Winnie, but this painting I didn't leave enough space, but that's okay. But if you wanted to, like you could have, if you had like a gap, you could do the whole brim and then flick off some little things on the bottom like this for the bottom of the brim. So guys, we are pretty much done. If you guys want to add Binks, I'm going to show you how to do a cat. If there's anything else that you want to add, definitely go ahead and do that. Here's the painting as a whole. Now Binks, he is very easy. When I make Binks, you can definitely sketch it on beforehand and then do it. You're gonna wanna find space. Now I didn't leave a whole lot of space for him, for me to put him in my painting. I didn't put him in my original one, but he is something I have done in later paintings just because he was so popular. But what I'm gonna do, there we go. You're just gonna do little round head, little tiny ears, put his body like a round oval, and then you could do a tail like however you want. But that's how you do a cat. You could have like the tail even like come down, depending on how he's sitting. Like, it's super easy. So again, watch this. Little round head, little tiny ears, body, and tail. Now I made my ears a little big, so all you do to fix that is just make the head a little bit bigger. And that's it. So you guys, the last thing, this is optional if you decide you want to add some shine to your sisters to really make them stand out. I have these. I would also pick up a red one or just mix this color into red and put it on Mary. But we have crystal green, woo, and berry. Okay, there we go. And all it is just you put it right on top of your sisters. I would do this when they dry. Come on out. It's not coming out of the bottle. Let me grab the lid. And you could do it with a round brush, whatever brush you did to put on their color. I'm just going to take a little bit of the green and I'm just going to put it right on top. And that's it. And you can see when the light hits her, she's a little bit shiny. It's really, really cool. I'll go ahead and do the other one. And I would just streak it on just like you did the clothing. I wouldn't cover the whole thing, as then you're going to get rid of a lot of the shadows and stuff. Then a couple streaks here and there, because it's not 100% transparent. So a couple streaks. And voila! So cute. I really like the metallic. Again, mine wasn't fully dry, so it's kind of pulling the paint. So make sure yours is dry when you go to do this part. And then I'm just going to mix a little metallic into some red and do this for Mary. And that's it. There's our witches. So that's how you do the Sanderson Sisters. You guys, it looks so cool. I can't wait to hang this up. So thank you so much for painting with me, you guys, today. And until next time, I can't wait to see what we do next and create together. Be sure to post your pictures in the private group. I'd love to see them. All right, you guys, thanks for painting with me. Have a happy Halloween.
Here to take up a American mystic. Trim him of his baby fat. Here to take up a American mystic. Give him fur black as black, just like